Well, hey friends, it's Ann Eileen Thompson. I'm so excited to welcome you back to the Faith Driven Leader podcast. Our conversation today is with a good friend of mine by the name of Josh Johnson. Josh and I have known each other for a really long time. We actually shared office space way back in the day. But Joshua is an entrepreneur. He's a builder. He's a city leader, and he's somebody who has spent his life creating things. If you really zoom out, creating things that bring people together. Josh spent 15 years as the CEO of a company called Mindbox Studios, where he helped launch more than 100 startups and played a really significant role in building the startup ecosystem here in Cincinnati before he made a really dramatic shift into real estate development, so different from what he'd been doing, and community planning in Northern California, all the way across the country. Today, he serves as the COO of the Good News Rescue Mission in Redding, California, and he serves as a planning commissioner for the city. And, this conversation that Josh and I are going to have is about so much more than career moves. He's made some incredible career moves in his life, but it's really about learning how do you recognize the voice of God in the midst of uncertainty and what feels like big changes that God might be leading you into. It's about how do you discover that your career might not be a straight line at all. It could actually be a series of invitations, and often it is invitations that are helping us to better understand who God created us to be. Along the way of the conversation, we're going to talk about Josh's story of hearing God lead him out of the world of vocational ministry into entrepreneurship, and then this surprising cross-country move that began with a dream and unfolded through a series of confirmations and relationships and doors that opened up along the way. We're going to talk about transferable skills and identity and ambition and patience and all kinds of good stuff. So I'm excited for you to listen in on my conversation with Josh Johnson. Let's dive in. All right. Well, Josh Johnson, I am so excited to talk to you. I was thinking about, didn't we used to call the original office space Alaska?
That might have been. I think I faintly remember that, but
Yes.
it was such
So
a fun time in our lives.
I know. How many years ago was that actually? It was like,
And I want to say we were in Hyde Park Square, which is the first one that
yeah, we
we
were there too.
co-worked together. That was probably 2009,
Oh my
2010.
gosh.
And then we
We're
went to
old.
Palmer Hall after that there in downtown Cincinnati.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? We're
Yeah.
old. We're old,
Yes.
Josh.
Yeah.
Anyway, but now you're living on the other side of the country, and I'm just so excited to talk to you a little bit about your career path and all the things that the Lord has shown you as you have been meandering where He has been leading you. So I'm really excited about that. So let's dive in. I want to start like at kind of a look back. Like when you look back over your career, Josh, and you think about how God has kind of led you in all of these interesting directions. Kind of how did you sense or see him shaping you and who you are through your career?
Man, I was kind of somebody who was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Career was not really a word that I liked using. It kind of was a bad word for me. Originally, like coming out of college, I thought I was going to have a career in ministry as a pastor and changed my degree midway through my freshman year at Oral Roberts. I was meeting a lot of theology students who knew a lot about the Bible but weren't very close to God, and so I wasn't very. I think that turned me off a little bit because I was like, man, I want to do things. I started seeing myself like maybe my giftings made more sense outside the church, but I also wanted to have a foot in the church too. So,
Hmm.
but I kind of felt like I could be more effective, both have more fun and like utilize who I was, but also started seeing that maybe even the greater kingdom of God, which I'm still meditating on what that means and what that is, but that my role inside of that picture made more sense outside of vocational ministry. But it was like vocational ministry was all I really understood at the time. So it was a
Hmm.
big shift for me to say, I'm going to change my degree. And I changed it to
Yeah.
government business. And that was kind of the starting point where I kind of took that leap. I disappointed some people back home. who, had high hopes for me and in the call of God, as it was
Yeah.
called, in my upbringing. And
Wow.
that somehow maybe I was outside of that call now and I was kind of on my own. But I felt so close to God at
Mm.
that time, though. And I really it probably was one of the first times that I felt so certain that God was speaking to me.
You know what? That's really impressive. What was probably a pretty young age,
Mhm. Yeah, I
you
was I
know?
was 18. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's impressive. Like when you look back on that now and you say, I really felt certain, what
Mhm.
allowed you to feel that certain? Because I think a lot of people, I mean, it's pretty common to change your major in school,
Yeah.
but a shift from kind of full-time ministry and thinking, I think a lot of Christian kids grow up thinking that's the only way to serve the Lord is to go into
Yeah.
ministry and realizing that at a young age and saying, no, I actually think that God's calling me more into the marketplace. What made you
Mhm.
so certain?
Yeah, and I use I want to kind of preface the word certain is that I felt more certain on that ground than another ground. It still required a
Okay.
lot of faith, because it was scary, kind of going outside of like what I would say is like community covering other things that were like culturally, it was kind of scary. It felt actually less certain in some ways from that
Ah,
angle, but it felt more certain in what I was attuning my ear to what does the voice of God mean for me? What does it actually look like to follow this prompting that seems so out of left field, maybe not really like wise on paper,
hmm.
and going this direction. And I would say that it was I started seeing myself and it made more sense. And even though I didn't even know myself yet, right? We're still like
Yeah,
there's so many years. I felt like my whole 20s I was like just so much of just figuring out like what is it
yeah,
that who am I? What can I
yeah.
do? What's my role in all this? But I think I just started feeling a posture change. I would say I
Okay.
was more about a posture change than the exact destination of where I was
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
And and I love that. I actually love the picture. I'm a big baseball fan, so the picture of a diamond, a baseball diamond, is when I'm kind of mentoring younger people, I always remember back to someone who really uh, helped me to see that I really don't. It's not always that God has got a specific position for you, but it's that there is a that you're in the field. Sometimes
yeah,
we, hey, you want as a batter, you might be trying to hit it in the gap. Like, oh, I want to hit it in right center,
yeah,
for instance. But if you hit it in left center, at the end of the day, you're still postured, you're still in the ballpark, you're still
yeah,
going the right direction.
yeah,
And I feel like my posture shifted at 18. And then ever since then, it's just been walking with God and like, what does he have? Holding things loosely, being
yeah,
willing to shift and change. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit about some of those bigger shifts, but that was kind of the beginning of it.
yeah. I love that. I love the baseball field analog, and I think yeah, I talk to a lot of young people right now in particular, and I feel like they feel a lot of pressure to choose exactly the right place to be playing.
Yeah.
And that's a great word picture for that. I'm also really interested. You said something, you kind of glossed over it, but you said, I remember I kind of started seeing myself.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important concept to understand who we are, like
Yeah.
how we've been designed. What was it that was becoming evident to you even back then at a pretty young age?
Well, I think that another picture that's helped me like well, I started seeing like, okay, who am I as it relates to my community and the community that I'm
Mm,
around. And another way that it could be said is what are some unique identifiers? It might
mhm.
be you start noticing how you think or where you fit. You kind of think about it in terms of family sometimes.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you find yourself when you're in a group is that people will fill the gaps of what's needed. If
Mm,
there's laughter needed, to lift a room up, the people that can bring that will tend to find the moments to bring that. And
yeah.
those who need to bring a nice serious note to something will also kind of anchor the group back to earth. And it's
Yeah.
just funny how we all have these like these things, I started to see myself in like in this in terms of where I fit in the community. But I also I would say those were the earliest times where I started to open my eyes to what are the tables that I'm invited to,
Mm,
what are the patterns that I'm seeing in my life where people are kind of identifying traits that are like through line traits that no matter where I am, if I'm playing sports or if I'm doing a project or if I'm,
yeah.
volunteering at my church or if I'm at work, my manager, my pastor, and my coach all say this about me. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, these are patterns, these are the character traits that God might. Some of them might be, outflows of brokenness that it's kind of in the
Sure.
midst of healing, and and then
Yeah.
others of it, it's like, oh no, you're like, this is like the wiring of God,
Yeah.
and this is how you show up in all these different ways, and it's going to be true no matter where I am.
Yeah.
I think then starting to, I had a really great mentor, and we both know this individual who really helped me in my 20s see that I don't need to go go fight to sit at tables that I'm not meant to sit at
Mm, yeah.
because someone else is there and it looks glamorous to be at that table. And when I
Mm,
say a table, let's just say it's a
yeah.
position of authority or it's recognition of some
Yeah.
you want to be recognized for, or but also that there is a perfect time and a perfect table that will, it almost feels like, wow, I was always meant to be there.
Yeah.
That was, it's like I don't need to take what is meant to be given to me, and I can wait for that invitation, just kind of do the work behind the
Mm,
scenes, wait for that invitation, and all of a sudden, like the tables will open up, like where we're
yeah.
meant to be, I think. And I know that's pretty ethereal, but it's more of like, I think, an exercise of one, like trust,
Yeah.
a big element of trust, but also keeping our eyes open that we will be like the world needs us.
Yeah.
And we don't have to we don't have to do all of that. Everything that we think we are doesn't have to all be expressed in one day or one moment. Like we have a lifetime to walk with God and to show up in the world, to show up in our city, in our church, and all these different things. And that we could just, like, there's just so much more. I think I was just so eager for
Yeah.
so much of my life to just, and so impatient with that. And so I think I started,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, Josh. I would say you're saying you were impatient, but I think the story you just told us is one of tremendous patience, right?
Well,
Like,
there's an inner, I think on the outside, I think I didn't get an F, but I would say that I give myself a C because the inner part
uh,
of me, like, is
yeah.
like, every man is like, I'm waiting till I'm 25 until the insurance companies drop my rate. And I'm just like, Lord, let the world see how amazing I am. It's like,
Yeah.
I just need to be invited. It's like, I know that I can knock it out of the park, but really I don't know what is being built in me.
Yeah.
God is always like, I'll use the word man just not as a gender thing, but I feel like oftentimes what we think, we focus on this calling or career,
Yeah.
and because it's kind of the carrot that is used. And I don't mean God to be like this game player or game maker like in the Hunger
Mhm.
Games or anything, but there's this carrot or stick that it's like mission and calling and all these things, which are very beautiful and totally true. But there's also like a other truth where in the process, really, it feels like he cares so much about building us
Yeah.
while we're building other things.
Yeah.
And that, if, I think just the lifelong spiritual journey of mine has been to sit and rest as best I can, often sometimes in failing to do so, but sit and rest in what he's building in me
Yeah.
while I'm not yet at the destination I want to be. And to be honest, with my, whether Enneagram or personality, you name the personality test, whatever it is for me, I'm probably never going to be satisfied with the destination. I'm always going to kick it down the road anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think I just had to surrender to the God's building me because I'm never going to be happy with the destination. So
I love that. I mean, however you got there, I love the where you got, right? Because it's really about saying, I've long since for a while I've been saying that I really feel like God uses our careers to show us who he created us to be.
Yeah.
He uses our work, whether you use the word career or not, whatever work we do, whether we stay home for a couple of years, whether we work in tech, whether we're in corporate or ministry, whatever work we're doing, if we can listen and observe, he is showing us who he created us to be.
Yeah.
And I love that perspective of you don't have to like push to be invited to the tables you're going to get invited to. That's
Yeah.
such an encouragement. Okay, so let's fast forward from the college years to you're building a successful tech company in Cincinnati. Tell us a little bit about that
Mhm.
season, what was going well, what was going on for you in that season?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that really stood out. One is embracing my kind of sense, that overall posture I was telling you about.
Yeah.
It was the first time I got to really step into a how do I do the work that I love doing and try to bless my city at the same time? How to
Mm,
be a community participant and build something in community. And that was the my expression of church for so long. Really, it really felt like my ministry and my um, I would just say outward expression of giving back to the community was actually
yeah.
helping build the startup community in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was something I donated a lot of hours. We didn't get a lot of direct benefit business wise. There was indirect. There definitely was,
Sure.
because we were a tech company and we built stuff. There definitely were ties, but it wouldn't be like on paper you would say let's you should have your CEO spend the amount of time that I really spent on it. It wouldn't be like, yeah, you should do that. That makes sense. But I loved it so much, and
Yeah.
the aspect of building community, it gave me kind of that first taste of city
Mm.
building in a way.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um, and I got to sit on some boards with like the
Hmm.
um, in Cincinnati there that were part of the
Hmm.
venture community, and helping invest in small businesses and startups, and just working with entrepreneurs and being in that world of like innovative thinking at a time that was pretty tough. It was after the Great Recession,
Yeah.
and it was a really tough time, and a lot of people were trying to figure out their way, and like that entrepreneurial spirit was very like hopeful. And
Yeah.
so it just felt like I was a part of like a and Cincinnati at the time as a city was not on the decline. It was on a revival of
Yeah.
an incline, just overall from an infrastructure standpoint downtown, all the way through the community in the startup ecosystem. So it was really
Yeah.
fun to be part of.
There was such an energy in that startup community at the time,
Yeah.
and it was so and it was a truly a faith-led ecosystem. I really feel like,
Hmm.
if you zoomed out from the ecosystem that was there, and I actually think we're starting to see some resurgence of that right now in our area, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
But that it was contagious. Like I remember just being so drawn to it and
Yeah.
feeling like I belonged.
Yeah.
And boy, when you can feel like you belong in a place that is making change and making impact and building jobs and building the community, that's a beautiful thing. So it's understandable to me that that was scratching that itch for you and really kind of bringing you alive. But
Yeah.
at some point, as I've heard a bit of your story, something started to shift and you started to sense maybe God was moving you in a different direction. Tell us a little bit about how you started to sense that shift.
Well, I mean, this is where, for those of you that this might go a little too mystical for some, and I totally get it.
I
I
love the
totally get it.
story though.
Like if I were you, I would just shut this podcast off right now, so you can see at the you can see at the marker there, and we'll know when everyone dropped off. But no, I had a dream. I don't have a lot of dreams, and it kind of started with a literal dream one night,
Yeah.
and I'll truncate the story a little bit, but I was in this dream. I was building a literal city with friends, but these are people that I didn't know.
Okay.
But I knew in my dream state that these were friends. These are people that I had relationship with, and we built a city together. Um, it was weird. It was very different looking. The land was different. The trees, the dirt we were like started with shovels and ended with this like beautiful connected community that really had
Wow.
people at the heart of it. And it felt like intentionally designed. And that's what really imprinted on me. So then every day I would drive around town and I would just look at cities and neighborhoods differently then. And I was like, who decided that a neighborhood would be there? Who decided what
Mm,
the roads are? Who named them? Who who decided how the homes would look? And some communities felt more planned than others.
yeah.
And um, and I started just digging into and learning about this like developer because I had renovated some homes during the recession. We bought some foreclosures and renovated one. We lived in one as a family that we renovated and I was like, I understood real estate investing, but I didn't understand like what a developer did, that you speculatively buy land and then you redevelop it, you
Yeah.
subdivide it, and you design and create a community of
Yeah.
people where
You
people
you make
raise
those
their kids.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, you make all those
Yeah.
decisions. Like it starts with a map, really. It starts with a vision and a map. And there are neighborhoods throughout Cincinnati, like Marymount and others, that are were very intentionally planned,
Yeah.
meticulous. And I live not far from some of those, so I can see the dichotomy of those that were kind of haphazard, kind of what I'd call like a blow and go neighborhood versus somebody who like thought about everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I was just imprinted on that. And then a couple weeks later, I got an app notification on my phone. Um, and it was from on the Realtor app because I was involved in real estate. But I didn't know I had set up this parameter that would go as far as California. I got this California listing, and it was a land listing for like 3,000 acres. And every picture that was in my dream, like the earth, the dirt, the types of trees, the rolling hills, everything, it was exactly what was in my dream. This listing and all the photos, and it freaked me out.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
mean, because the topography of that area is totally different than the topography of Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's like arid, like Mediterranean
Yeah.
climate in Northern California. That's where they, grow, all the vineyards and that kind of thing. It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And that's not Cincinnati.
No.
So it
No.
was like when I had the dream, I thought it was ethereal. I thought God might be just, inspiring me to think more intentionally about community. Maybe I was going to, do something in real estate, but I was like,
Yeah.
I just didn't know. And when I saw this app notification, it kind of freaked me out. It was in
I
Redding,
bet.
California. And I was like, shoot, this might have more implications that really impact my family more. My wife had been along she knew about the dream, but then when I told her about this, it was like, I don't know what to do with this. So then we got
Yeah.
our pastor involved. I was like, talk me out of this. This seems crazy. Like, because we're so rooted in Cincinnati and we had so much community and I would just, as a side note, just pin in this is that I would say that I'm so glad that God doesn't give me the full picture of my life
Hmm.
in a moment. I'm so glad that He gives us enough so that we can be fully bought into the community that we're called to at that time, because the richness of relationships and depth of what we're able to.
Yeah.
I had seen that I was going to move to California. I'd just be thinking and planning about moving to California.
Yeah. That's
But
really wise. Like, and just being present where we are.
present. Yeah.
Yeah. I love
I'm so
that.
glad. I just, I told God, and God was like, yeah, I already know. But I was like, God, I can be on a need to know basis from here forward. Like, I'm good. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel like He's just always been. But I'm grateful. I look back and I go, I'm really grateful. I don't know where I'm going to be in 20 years, but I'm so grateful that I'm committed and present
Yeah.
in my community today, because I think that's how we're meant to live, like
Yeah.
it is a better way. So that's my little like side road. But
Love it. So
um
you had this dream.
yeah.
It's a very different topography. I mean, I think most of us, when we have dreams, those of us who have dreams and God speaks to us through dreams, it's usually metaphorical.
Yeah.
And that's how you were kind of proceeding. And then you get this ping on your phone that is exactly the same picture that you had seen pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a huge shift. Like
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, you said Rebecca was kind of with you the whole way, but like
Yeah.
That's a big shift. How many did you have all four girls then?
Yeah. We had
Okay.
three out of the four at that time. We were pregnant
Okay.
with our first.
Okay. So
Yeah, and yeah,
what gave you the faith to make that kind of a leap? Like, I mean, you leapt geographically and you leapt in terms of your career and what you were doing.
yeah. If we were to jump to, I'll work backwards. We ended
Yeah.
up moving to Reading about 10 months later. Um,
Okay.
so it was not overnight. And I would say that it was a perfect, to me, it was the right process. Like it felt like the right amount of time to
Okay.
season
Yeah.
dream and
Yeah.
also to clarify it. Um,
Yeah.
I think that after that point where I started feeling that shit, I was like, wow, this is a big shift. I feel like this is coming. I don't know when. I didn't assume timing. I think that
Okay.
might have been a really helpful thing because maybe
Yeah.
because we're so rooted in Cincinnati that it was really hard to imagine leaving. So I think we
Yeah.
just didn't immediately think, oh, well, God is moving us tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
That we didn't have any sense on timing actually at the time, and also like we hadn't even visited this place, so it's like there was just a lot of practical things that just weren't in
Yeah.
place. So this is in October of 2014. Literally the next month, I I I was very well networked in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
My entire network though was like made up of like business professionals, like white collar and tech and innovation and investors.
Okay.
I kid you not, starting in November of 2014, it felt like everybody I met was in construction or a developer.
Wow.
Like this role that I like saw myself in this dream playing.
Yeah.
It was like my entire network started to shift over the next few months. And it was like
Interesting.
everybody I was meeting at every point randomly would mention things and like tell me things. I've never met people like this. But like I wasn't actually like in
You weren't
those circles.
seeking it out. Yeah. You weren't seeking it out or even active in those circles. Yeah.
Yeah, like I would be sitting at like a coffee shop that I normally go to where a lot of other tech bros are. And, just like sitting there. And I would meet like a random like guy who's subdividing or developing property somewhere. And then all of a sudden, like, we'd start talking, we'd build this friendship and like all of it, I'm just learning and I'm just absorbed. I'm just a sponge at this time because I'm like, oh, tell me about, and it just
Yeah.
everything. And that would lead to another thing. So it was just weird stuff that started happening. So then we planned a trip to come visit Reading in April of 2015. We had our fourth child in January. So we come out here and just wild things happened. Like, just a random trip turned into like, how did we have so many like meetings? And then like office space was opened up at the Economic Development Center. They're like, can you come here and help mentor entrepreneurs? We want to start a startup ecosystem here. You have experience with that. I was like, yeah, that'd be great if I move here,
Yeah.
like, it's like, I don't
Yeah.
know, too fast, too much, too soon. Uh,
Right.
but it was like all these like weird and just connection with people that were like-minded happened in
Yeah.
one weekend. I got invited to this. Someone was like, "Oh, you're here? Like, oh, that's cool. You got a cool background. You want to come to this party we're having Saturday night? There'll be other people and I meet these people that are all like investing in the community. They're starting businesses. They're doing innovative things. They're doing real estate stuff, like whatever it was. It was just like this
Yeah.
amalgamation of really cool people. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on?
Yeah.
Then at the end of the weekend, I asked my wife, I was like, okay, well, what do you think about Reading? She's like, I think we got to move here. And
Wow.
that was kind of when it got really real because there's no way we would have made this move if she hadn't come to that conclusion because wisdom for any of you men listening, but if God speaks to you, he also will speak to your wife. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes. That's so true.
yeah.
Yes.
And I just had to trust, like, hey, I didn't know the timing. And whenever it was, it could have been 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It could have been, 10 days. I didn't know. And
Yeah.
so when she said that, I was like, okay. So then we came back home and I, did the whole Gideon thing. We laid out some fleeces. God
Mhm.
just blew through all those. And it was like clear. We rented our house to the very first person that person ended up buying our house a year later from us. And like, it was just like, all
all
these
the
weird things
pieces.
just made, and then the person who let us stay at their Airbnb said, "Hey, I'll rent the Airbnb to you long term for the same budget that we were paying, basically in
Wow.
Cincinnati." So it's like the transition here, it was just like we're gonna make the God definitely made the transition really easy because let me tell you, nothing's been easy since then, but it's been that's a whole nother podcast. So we don't have to get into.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we have time to get into all that. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, because I was thinking about a lot of people I've talked to who God has led them on a significant pivot like this or a significant leap like this. There's a
Mhm.
stage where I hear two stories. One, I heard that the Lord was leading me here and I was so excited. I was ready to go right away and I got out ahead of him. And I've
Yeah.
also heard the story of I was scared to death, but by the time it was time, I was so excited. Like that in my experience, like God has wooed me to a place of being more excited about the thing he's leading me to than I am worried about the thing I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Were you excited in the beginning and he had to really convince you, or were you a little bit, I don't really think I want to do this? And he wooed, because it sounds like he wooed both you and Becca to
Yeah.
want to do something this that otherwise 10 months earlier would have seemed pretty crazy.
Yeah. I think that it was at a time where I was feeling a bit at the end of what was I think that the picture of this started to make more sense for me
Okay.
when I started learning about there was something about this role of like a developer or city builder in this way that was actually physical, not just digital. I think I could have stayed in the tech world and had a lot of fun. We have mutual friends that are having a blast doing
Yeah,
that. And
absolutely.
and I just, sometimes like, oh, that's like I kind of envy a little bit of like I remember that life and it was cool to build things like that and to be thinking about change and affecting change through tools that you can build
Yeah.
and all that. But when I started feeling the shift to the like building physical things or physical spaces for people and community in this way, the intersection of like the actual building of something,
Hmm.
also with government and planning and kind of the red tape there, the difficulty of that,
Hmm.
and also the missional nature of like creating spaces for people, the creativity that's involved in that, and the
Yeah.
planning. It tapped all these things that actually I didn't actually get to exercise in tech
Mm.
quite the same way to the same degree.
Yeah.
And so the level of risk too was interesting. It was scary, but it also felt right.
Yeah.
But it was scary. I would say, it took a good 5 years for me to like fully go 100% all in on real
Interesting.
estate. There wasn't
Yeah.
there wasn't a ton of safety net. We have kids. Like it was a process to getting to like where this is like the full-time thing.
Yeah. And during those 5 years, was it, I'm guessing it wasn't all sunshine and roses during those 5 years, that there were some challenges, and I'm sure there have been challenges even since then. There always are, right? But it's interesting. Some folks will make the leap 100% right away, and
Hmm.
some will kind of just start stepping forward where God is leading and walking through the doors. It's like what you said, sitting at the tables you're being invited to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how did you balance in that, especially in that 5 year phase? I can imagine you're still invited to the tech table. You still were running Mindbox. You were still doing that work, and you're
Yeah.
being invited to these new tables. So, how
Yeah.
did you discern how best to steward your time?
Well, I think I was allowing Mindbox to subsidize what I was
Okay.
doing, so it did help subsidize. So I was still very
Yeah.
involved in Mindbox. I hired a CEO so that I can step back and not carry the full weight of that.
Hmm.
Um, but I was still involved in some of the business development and the community building part kind of scratched that itch because most of my role was like in the community building side when I moved here to kind of
Hmm.
help with the startup ecosystem. That felt pretty missional and kind of part of why I was here anyway. So
Hmm.
it kind of got me into the community. I met so many people through that. It almost felt
Yeah.
like a way that God, connected me to the city was through that. Um,
Yeah.
it was a way that I could serve, being the new guy, just serve and not ask anything of the city in return.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, it was just a way that I could be like, hey, let me just help build this community and get to know it through service. And so
Yeah.
that was kind of like we didn't do a ton of volunteering at our church at that time. That what I went we had a church community, but we really made that our like that was the volunteer. There was a lot of time put into like startup weekend events and
Yeah.
venture conferences and things like that. It's really big and just doing these things for the first time in a community. And a lot of that just reminded me of Cincinnati. It was like, oh,
Mm.
I've done this before and I could see that like what it inspires in a community was so important.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say we're you know the balance was really tough. Eventually, it came to a head where I had to choose. I had
Yeah.
eventually cut ties totally and really take the leap, and that was a really scary moment. I sold the business
Yeah.
and just said, "Hey, I'm going to lose this old identity." And actually, it did. It shifted my old. There are people now that know me. They don't even know my tech background.
Yeah.
They only know me and what I'm doing now. And it's so funny to me because I'm like, man, so much of my identity was like just woven together with this old thing. I see the through line, and I actually had a friend in Cincinnati who when I moved, I was like, how am I going to do this? And he goes, you had what you're going to do in real estate development. You've already been developing
Mm.
as a CEO of Mindbox in the tech world. God's made transferable skills. He used that word,
Yeah.
transferable skills
Yeah.
that you're going to apply over there, and you're going to see it one day. It's going to make sense because I was just thinking tech and real estate, like
Yeah. Two different
construction.
worlds.
These are
Yeah.
two different worlds or whatever,
Yeah.
but he helped me see it at more of an interpersonal level that was helpful at that time to be like, oh, okay, I can kind of trust that like it's going to be fine. I'll find my way. And it really is like the way that I work in this space is not unlike how we problem solved with clients building apps and like the
Yeah.
complex user experiences and the way
Yeah.
like, all the different parties we and stakeholders we had to interview and
Yeah.
consult and figure out how to solve their problems in particular ways and then testing those and then getting feedback. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is very much like city planning. It's
Yeah.
actually not very different. It's just different, like, and the end outcome and product is just different.
Yeah. What's interesting is, people throw around the phrase like God equips the called, which I believe he does. I believe he does. But I also think he calls the equipped,
Mhm.
right? And for so many of us, I often have people do an exercise of like, map out your jobs that you've had since you were a teenager.
Yeah.
And what are the skills you learned in those jobs? What are the skills you practiced? What are the things you learned how to do and learned how to do well? And
Mhm.
if you zoom out from that, what is the story that God is telling?
Yes.
Because he's telling a story about who you are.
Mhm.
And some of those skills will be directly transferable, and some of them will kind of pivot and twist around a little bit in terms of how we're using them or on what goal are we applying them. But
Yes.
you're right, problem solving skills and negotiation and communication and collaboration skills and
Yeah.
understanding, all of the different stakeholders. Those are skills that are completely applicable across many different places. And somehow we get our identity wrapped up in, well, I'm a third base player, not a second base
Right.
player or a first base
Right.
player. Or I might even be playing on a different field,
Yeah.
but I can still use the skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing the season you're in, knowing yeah, like it's just there's so much. I like position. I like what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
that metaphor is so good. Like um, there's the skills of catching and throwing are kind of still there, but I'm doing it from a different angle, I guess,
Yeah.
is it say, and I'm building new skills. I don't know how they're going to be used. Well, what I'm doing now is I'm doing ops for a nonprofit that provides a lot of homeless services
Yeah.
and does kind of the continuum of housing. So we're building communities for low income people at various stages of their either recovery or economic stability journey, just to
Yeah.
to provide kind of a breadth of those types of options for people. And I'm utilizing what I've learned over the years, including the real estate development. Now working with the state of California on very
Wow.
large 20 to $40 million grant projects and very complex red tape. I thought it was difficult working with a city and their red tape. Try working with the state of California.
Yeah. Can't
I,
imagine.
I know it's all for a purpose. So when I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is all training. I know this is good. And eventually I made a joke the other day is man, if one day, if God ever has me build in another state, I'm gonna feel like it's an absolute breeze. Like this
Piece of
is,
cake. Right.
yeah, totally
Of
good.
all the states to learn in, you got the litmus
Yeah.
test.
Yeah, exactly. But it is helpful. Like it does build on itself. And
Yeah.
it's funny. It's like I still see myself as that 18-year-old though.
Really?
In a way, and like the same person I started getting an inkling of who I was back then,
Hmm.
is now I feel like that movie Big, where Tom Hanks is wearing this big suit. Sometimes I feel like I'm sitting at these tables in this oversized suit. And I'm like, I know I look like y'all, I look like you,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here and I can talk like you and we can all have a conversation, but gosh, I just still sometimes you just go back, you're like, oh, I'm just that 18-year-old kid that's just like, I just want, put me in, coach.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited, to do the work that feels, exciting to you and just brings you to life. And that it's just like you're in that right moment at the right table.
Yeah.
Uh, and I would say that like I just wish I'd tell my 18-year-old self, like, like it's all right. You don't have, just go through the process
Yeah.
and just be patient with yourself. Like you don't have to prove anything
Hmm.
to anybody. It's like that old orphan thing, just like always wanted to. It's like you don't have to prove anything.
Yeah.
And like when you're 40, you'll be invited to so many tables. You have to say no more than
Yeah.
say you have to say no more than you will ask to be somewhere. You'll
Yeah.
just actually be managing no's.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because like so many people will start to see who you are, even
Yeah.
sometimes more clearly than we do, and they want to pull on it.
Yes.
And you'll have to get more discerning about where to spend the time.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the harder job. And I think that I don't always do great at that. I'm learning how to do that, but I think that's like my next. It's like, hey, how do I say yes to? I love that scripture is like, hey, let your yes be yes, your no be no.
Yeah.
How do I say yes to the right things and not overwhelm my schedule with because I'm used to saying yes to this other thing, and so like
Right.
learn to manage that in the midst of like where I am in my career now is
Yeah.
kind of where I would say I'm a novice
Yeah.
currently. I
Well, I
ask
mean,
guys all the time how to do it.
yeah. I mean, and that makes a lot of sense to me. I think our 20s and our 30s are the years where we're figuring out and we're testing and we're trying and we're building so many of our skills and our relationships and our understanding of who we are. And then kind of the 40s, maybe into the early 50s are like we're cashing some of that in bigger ways. Not that we're getting the benefit if we're really letting God
Yeah,
do that. That's when you're in that season where it feels like there's so much. And the beyond that, what I have experienced myself, because I'm beyond that age, but and others that I've worked with is like then you get into the okay, Lord, show me where the legacy is. Where am I replicating? Where am I, I'm shifting more to almost a discipleship lens over the work I'm doing, and I'm bringing up the next generation and multiplying in new ways. And
yeah.
it,
I like that book Richard Rohr wrote, Falling Upward. Is really helpful with that
yeah, okay.
kind of
I'll have
thinking.
to read. I haven't read that one, but I will get that.
It's a real short one, but
Yeah,
man, talks about first half and second half of life.
yeah,
And it's not an age thing actually, but it
yeah,
goes beyond age. You can have people in second half of life thinking and in their 30s, and
yeah,
some people first half of life thinking in their 60s. But um,
yeah.
I think that was really helpful for me to yeah, that's the stage that I'm kind of
Starting to get into.
starting to get into, and you can get kind of over tapped, and I want to. I think that's kind of the part that I'm really working on, meditating on. Like, how do I really to discern where I'm supposed to spend my time now in the midst of other things that are really important to me, like my daughters and my wife, and
Yeah.
that, and mix with the stuff that we're doing in the city,
Yeah.
uh, and with our business and stuff. So it's like, okay, there has to be a point where you just say no a lot.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And that's
Yeah.
totally okay. When I was younger, I was like, oh, that means missed opportunity, or that means
Yeah.
a lot of that is still also just a poverty mentality,
Hmm.
lack of trust that God is going to provide, that I'm going to miss some big thing.
Yeah.
And it does take faith to discern and to act on discernment, like
Yeah.
to know, okay, I can say no to this, and God still has good things for me.
Right. Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, I think Josh, your story is such a nice picture of, how God wants to evolve what we're doing and the impact that we're having and who we're becoming. And he rewards our obedience and that stuff, even if our obedience is a bit imperfect,
Right.
which for all of
Yes.
us, there are
Yeah.
seasons and stages where it certainly is, but I want to encourage you that he'll make that clear.
Hmm.
It's obvious that you hear from him and you recognize his voice, and he'll make that clear as that gets to the point where it is time for you to start. It's almost like I think our careers are like we kind of we create this big funnel of
Yep.
everything we're doing, and then over time we just start to specialize in whichever direction he wants us to go and where we can most effectively replicate.
Yeah.
Somebody told me several months ago before I wrote my first book, they said, write the first book about the thing that everybody asks you questions about.
Mm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's good. What are the things that regularly people ask you about? People
Yeah.
ask me about their career. What are the things that people ask you about? And actually, that can be a really good discernment factor to kind of pay attention to.
Yeah. I
What are the
like that.
things that not just the young people, but like the mid-career people are always asking about?
Hmm.
Can be a really interesting. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into
Thank
a
you.
coaching session, but
Thank you. I like it. I
I'm so
receive it.
excited about where you're going. I'm excited about what's next for you. Well, so if you could zoom way out for a minute, we've got folks listening who maybe you're starting to feel some kind of nudge from God about something else he wants them to do. They might know what it is, they might not know what it is, but what encouragement would you speak over them? And maybe what watchouts would you speak over them?
Yeah, I would say my encouragement is that I believe God tends to speak, in ways that is sometimes it's consistent. He, I, th Sometimes he could kind of be out in left field. There's a few moments where it was really big moves for my family, and I've
Yeah.
had like three dreams in my entire life that I've ever remembered that didn't involve me falling, being chased by a boogeyman, or like somehow in outer space with like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like a dragon. I don't know. But dreams that actually felt like they meant something. I've had like three in my life. Um, and they've always been very significant. But the other ways that God has spoken to me, he always, I feel like, is so good about confirming his word.
Yeah.
Um, I would say be encouraged that he will confirm what you're initially feeling. Put it out there and just stay watchful,
Yeah.
and that you don't have to be in a rush about anything. I rarely does it seem like he's super urgent about things that are big moves. It feels like I would not going to say 100% of the time, but rarely is it that urgent. But that could happen too. But I would say that there would be a lot of there that he does confirm his word, and also I would just encourage that you don't have to know why. I think
Yeah.
that's like the
Oh,
big
that's so
trap.
good. That's
Such
so
a big
good.
trap is that oh, I'm doing this, and I have to be able to wrap it up in a story for other people, that there's a why so that people can understand it.
Yeah.
You know, and there might be an initial reason that you kind of feel like that there might be some purpose behind it,
Yeah.
that might be, but I'll tell you this, that why, whatever that initial why is probably only scratching the surface.
Totally. It's like the tip of the iceberg and all
Yeah.
the good stuff is down below the surface that we're not going to even fully know,
Yeah.
I don't think, this side of heaven. But
Yeah.
I love that word because we try to over explain, and frankly, we've grown up in a world where we can find the why to just about anything.
Yep.
But
And
God can't be outsmarted. Like we can't guess his why.
yeah. And I think that, when we feel him moving us, whether it's to start a business or to move or to quit a job, these aren't small things.
Right.
And I would say doing them flippantly, or what I would say, like if you're doing them, you know, in a way that is, uh, what's the word when when you shop and pick up the gum at
Oh,
the
oh
in
my
sh
gosh.
this is your world.
I know. Like the convenience thing,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
it's going to come to
haphazard.
me
Yes,
as soon as we're
yes.
done, but
And
I know what
that
you're
word's
talking about.
important. But it's like this haphazard mentality where it's like, oh, you're making a very like quick decision that
Yeah.
it is not as it's not very thought through. I would say that
Impulse. I knew it would
impulsive.
come to me. I knew it would come
Yes,
to
thank
me.
you. Impulsive buying. That's what I was saying.
Yes,
Is
impulsive.
that we sometimes think that means that's faith.
Yeah.
Is that, oh, because I'm quick to answer, but sometimes that could just be impulsive.
Yeah.
I would say that for me, like what I've noticed, the way God works in me is that the thing that He has for me usually starts as an idea or a thought or in prayer when I'm alone with Him, and it works itself out sometimes over years or months at least. Like it's not
Hmm.
like a desire, like let's just even say a desire or something that I kind of see myself in, and I kind of look ahead. I'm like, oh God, you might have that for me one day. Like getting involved in our city government was part of that, and I
Hmm.
let that germinate over time. When the right time came, I'm sitting on a planning commission or get appointed to city council or get involved in, and it was just like others, like it made sense. Like
Yeah.
there was a time in that, and so I would say that we don't have to be impulsive.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know that being, I think on the flip side of that is that if you notice that fear is keeping you
Yeah.
back, then, that's the tension of the gospel, right? Is that
Yes.
there's this, how do you, on one hand, say no to fear and say yes to God and follow like Peter and get out of the boat, but
Yeah.
also at the same time, you're able to be like Abraham and receive a word from God that you'll not see until you're in heaven.
Yeah.
You'll not see real.
Yeah.
He literally, God
Right.
gave him a vision and said, "You will be this more than all the stars in the sky. This will be your legacy." And Abraham's like, "Great, I'm old, and
Yeah.
I will see that." And God's like, "Yep, you have to trust me with this one."
Yeah.
And it's like, can God trust you with a dream that you're willing to step out of the boat for, and also know that you might not see the end of?
Oh, that's so good.
And I'm
That's
like,
so
man,
good.
God, give me a heart that I can do both of those things, where I can say
Yeah.
yes, but also not have to see it all to the end. Like if He's
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So, man, that's it.
Wow.
It's good. It's been
I'm
so good to chat with you about this stuff because
yes.
I think we can talk for hours, but
I know. I'm sure we could, but I love that, and I would just say, ending on that idea of, hey, God, give us hearts that we can say yes and be okay if we don't see all of the fruit that you're going to create through what we do
yeah.
and through what you're going to do through us. It's such a beautiful impartation to folks that are listening today. Josh, this has been such a great conversation. I knew it would be. I knew it would be. And you're right. We could do a whole other conversation about all the things that you've learned as you've been in Reading and building communities and getting involved in the city and all of that. I'm sure we could have a whole other conversation about that. But this was so, so valuable. Thank you for taking the time to share your story with us.
Oh, thank you. It's such a privilege to be able to share, and I love telling the story because I don't get to. You live your life. You don't often get to repeat a story, but I love the scripture. It says that we are strengthened by the blood of the Lamb. This is in Revelation,
Yeah.
and the word of our testimony.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, every time I get to share what God has done in me, what He's doing, it actually does something, I think, more for me And I remember
Yeah.
sitting at the table with you at dinner, and I was sharing with you, and I hadn't shared that story in years.
Yeah.
Felt like years. I mean, just when I first moved here, the story was shared a lot, but it was like then it's been years
Yeah.
since I heard it, and it just re-encouraged me, like, oh, God is so near. He's
Yeah.
so like there's just this, and it just kind of reinvigorated my heart
Oh,
for all this. So thank you for letting me do that.
absolutely. Thank you for meeting us when we happen to be in Reading, and the Cincinnati Reading connection is alive and well. So that's a good thing. It's a good
Right.
thing.
That's
All
right. Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you again, Joshua. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I really felt moved and inspired by that conversation coming off of it. And as always, I have three key takeaways for you from that conversation. The first one is just this reflection that I might have mentioned before on this show, but God wastes nothing. One of my favorite parts of Josh's story is how the skills that he developed in the world of tech and entrepreneurship became foundational in totally different spaces much later in his career. So often we think that a transition means we're totally starting over. But, God is always really building on what he's already developed in us. Our experiences, our wiring, our relationships, our growth, none of it is accidental and none of it is wasted. Second takeaway for me is that this whole piece of not forcing ourselves into the right opportunities. Josh talked about this idea of learning not to fight for tables he wasn't meant to sit at, and trusting that over time the right invitations would come. There's a lot of freedom in realizing that our job isn't to prove ourselves, it's to faithfully steward who God created us to be. And this concept of not forcing myself into a table or inviting myself into a table I've not been invited to, frankly, I'm still thinking about it. It's about a week since we recorded this show, and I'm still thinking about that and praying about that. Third big takeaway for me was walking out the career that God has for us requires both courage and a whole lot of patience. Towards the end of our conversation, Josh said something that really stuck with me. He talked about we should be praying for the kind of hearts that can say yes to God, but also trust him enough that we don't need to see the full picture and we've got the patience to wait that out. And boy, that's a really mature kind of faith, isn't it? It's the kind that's like willing to step out when God calls us out, but also willing to totally trust him with the outcomes and with the timing and with our legacy. Our legacy is really his legacy. So here's my challenge for you this week. It's something I'm challenging myself to as well. I want to encourage you to spend a couple times with God, spend a couple minutes with God, and simply ask him, where are you asking me to say yes right now? And where are you asking me to trust you with more patience? You probably don't have the whole picture yet of whatever is happening in your career with your work, and you probably don't understand why God is doing what he's doing. But I hope that today's conversation with Josh and these prompts and takeaways will remind you that God is incredibly faithful to guide us in our careers, one step, one season, one invitation at a time. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. If you loved the show, please give us a rating, share the show with someone that you know, follow us. We would love to have you along. Would love to hear from you anytime. Can't wait to see you next time on The Faith Driven Leader.